easier. Oh, yes, I will pause here. Hello, recording in progress. All this means that the task of applying for scholarships can be a source of confusion and frustration. So let's fix that. This is our chance to take a breath, pause, and figure out, how do scholarships actually work? So here are some of the questions we will be answering. There are many more, but these are the core ones. How many scholarships should I apply for? Where do I find all these scholarships that I'm actually eligible for? What should I have on hand to make applying for scholarships easier and less time consuming? When is the best time to apply for scholarships? How realistic is it to actually win a scholarship? How do people get, quote, full rides? I love that question. What do people do, people who win scholarships do differently? And then as many other questions as I can get to. So I've made this purposely a little bit shorter presentation so we have more time for Q&A. I've got some Q&A baked in. So let's go. First, can I have a poll from the moderator, please? I like to see who's in the audience. That helps me pace. I've given so many of these presentations, can do them in my sleep. So I'd like to know if you're a student, parent of senior, junior. It just kind of helps me get a sense for who's on the call with us so I can adjust a little bit. So if you wouldn't mind clicking that. And then let's see our results. I would love to see other interested human. I love that result. I think, Tom, you would be an other interested. Oh, no, you're an independent counselor. Yeah, we'll put you there. We'll make you an honorary independent counselor. Okay, so let's see our results. Who do we got?
Parents leading the charge.
It's so many, but juniors, so many more junior parents. Oh, I love that. Hello, independent counselors. Hello, fellows there. Yes, lots of parents of juniors. Fantastic. Okay. So here's our agenda for tonight. Planning to win scholarships, finding scholarships you can win, and applying for scholarships like a winner. We have a theme going here, and then we'll have some Q&A. So let's start with part one, planning to win scholarships, because it does take a plan. Three key things here: be reasonable, be knowledgeable, be specific. I'm going to expand on those, but these are our core themes. So be reasonable. Successful scholarshipers usually have one or more of the following qualities. They either have great academics, amazing talent, and that's a variety of things: athletic, artistic, lots of different things. A unique set of qualities. I put this example on here: adopted student from Montana seeking to major in landscape architecture with parents who are teachers. Like, sometimes you just have a quality that there's a scholarship for. There's a little college down the way called Mars Hill. It's a Baptist college. If you check the box on their college application saying you are Baptist, you could win that scholarship. So sometimes it's just a quality. And then lots of time and determination. Okay, so one or more of these things. If you're thinking, I have one of these, fantastic. If you have more, that's even better. Now, if you're saying, I maybe have lots of time and determination, but I'm not sure if I have great academics or an amazing talent or any unique qualities, here's what I would tell you. I would say there are many colleges that do discounting. So colleges that award scholarships, even if you don't have great academics or an amazing talent. It looks like any other scholarship when you get your award letter, but discounting is basically, think of the meme with Oprah: you get a scholarship, you get a scholarship, you get a scholarship. It's virtually everyone who applies to college gets a scholarship. The average discount rate for private colleges is about at 52% last I checked. So when you look at that sticker price for a very expensive college, a lot of times the scholarship, an automatic scholarship, might bring it down. The other thing I would say is grants. We're not talking about this as our focus today. That's a whole other discussion with FAFSA and need-based aid, but just bearing in mind, if one of these doesn't strike your fancy, grants are always an option too for those with financial need. Okay, so getting a scholarship is not equal making a college affordable. You could get a $1,000 scholarship, or you could get that big tuition discount. But if they give you $40,000, that's great. But if it still costs $80,000 initially, maybe that's still not affordable. I'm not raining on anyone, parade. I'm just setting some parameters before we start. So let's be reasonable. Now let's get into the fun stuff of, like, how do we actually win these things? How do we find them? So let's set specific and reasonable goals. So what's the ideal timeline? Right now, until you graduate from college. There are scholarships available all through the process. Yes, there are some scholarships for underclassmen. There are scholarships while you were in school. So at any point. The biggest window for scholarships is September through April of senior year. That's the big window. But when you apply, it really depends on the type of scholarship you're pursuing. How realistic is it to actually win a scholarship? I'm going to give you a vague answer first. It depends on the applicant and the type of scholarship, but we're going to unpack this. And how many scholarships should I apply for? However much you think you'll need, times 5. So if you think you're going to need $50,000, I want you to be prepared to apply for $250,000. Like however much you need, multiply it by 5. And then you're also going to apply for all of some types of scholarships and some of others. So if you've noticed, I've had these 3 words over and over: types of scholarship, type of scholarship, type of scholarship, because it all depends on those. I found when I first started advising people in how to afford college, you just Google scholarship and you're just awash with information, and it's just all too much. It's just an ocean that you feel like you can't possibly search all of. That's why I kind of identified these 3 types and really employed the idea of like divide and conquer. So here are the 3 types of scholarships: institutional, local, and private. So institutional, that is money coming from the colleges themselves. Local, these are ones that are limited to people in your geographic area, typically a school, a county, or part of a state. And then private, these are the wild, wild west of scholarships. This is everything from stuck at prom, make a prom dress out of duct tape, win $10,000. It's Coca-Cola. It's any of these outside scholarships. So they each have pros and they each have a pretty significant con. Let's start with the pros. Pro. Institutional is where the vast majority of money is at. Not only is it typically much bigger award amounts, but it tends to be renewable, which is so powerful. So if you get a $20,000 scholarship at an institution for your freshman year, that's not a $20,000 scholarship. As long as you maintain SAP, satisfactory academic progress. If you've ever seen anything about college financial aid, it's a lot of alphabet soup. It's a lot of acronyms, but as long as you maintain a certain GPA, you will get that award every year. So it's not a $20,000 scholarship, it's an $80,000 scholarship. And that's amazing. Local, these are so simple. When you think of just fill out the application, like a physical application or a Google form, just a simple application for a scholarship. That's what you're thinking of as a local one. These also are pretty limited competition because they're narrowed to people in your geographic region. Private, these are various and abundant. I mentioned the prom dress out of duct tape one. There is a zombie apocalypse scholarship, describe how you would survive. There's the Ayn Rand Fountainhead essay contest. There are ones for public speaking and for writing and for art. The golden rule of private scholarships is he who has the gold makes the rules. So if I want to create a blonde valedictorians from Sevierville, Tennessee scholarship, I can do that because it's a private scholarship. Cons, this is the downside of each. So with institutional scholarship, it really varies depending on the type of college you're looking at. Have whole other presentations that go into this, but suffice it to say, some colleges really put an institutional emphasis on giving out lots of aid. There's a gentleman named Jeff Salingo who has an excellent, excellent newsletter, and he has a website, and it's about buyers and sellers. Some colleges are actively trying to attract high achieving students to their school, so they're giving out more merit aid. Other schools know that if you don't want to pay the price, there's 100 people behind you. And so they don't have as much incentive to provide more merit aid. So it really depends. It also depends on how competitive you are within the applicant pool. Maybe you're getting in by the skin of your teeth at one place, but you'll be a top-notch student at another. So that makes a big difference. Local, the key con is dollar amount. It can vary, but I would say the median amount for local scholarships is about $1,000. Now that's $1,000 you didn't have to earn. I have students who will scoff at, oh, it's only $1,000. Well, you know, how long does it take you working? How many hours is that to work to earn $1,000? How long will it take you to fill out the scholarship application? So especially once you've done one, it's not a linear chart of like how much effort it takes. It actually takes less and less with each one you do. The con of private scholarships, it is a scavenger hunt. For every 100 scholarships you look at, you might find 1 or 2 that you are actually eligible to apply for, and the deadline has not passed. So that's the challenge, is finding the ones that work for you. Now, they also have different timelines of when you can look at them. So I say mostly when, because there are exceptions to this. Institutional runs November to February of senior year most of the time. There are some that start earlier. I'm thinking of things like the Questbridge Scholars Program, which is like a need-based full ride type scholarship program. So the bigger the award, the earlier the deadline tends to be. And these can run through February, sometimes March. Some colleges will, after you're accepted, allow you to browse their scholarship portal and then apply for scholarships. So those can go in sometimes into March, but the bulk of them are November to February of senior year. Local. Local tends to run from November to a little bit later, April. One of the reasons for this, they can start sooner some places. It depends on the state and where you live, but they tend to run till about April. Spring break is usually the defining line where the last few of them are due. They tend to run later because they like to do like a local awards ceremony. You've probably heard of it or seen it, where the seniors slightly before graduation have like a senior awards night or senior scholarship night, and the little ladies knitting club comes in and awards their scholarship. That's another kind of downside of the local scholarships. Institutional, you're aware of and you know what you've gotten. Unless the FAFSA is messed up, we're going to just pretend the trauma of last year's FAFSA is over. You will know what you're getting before you decide where you're going to go. Local, it's more of cherry on top money. The timing is such that you usually don't find out if you've won the money until after you've already committed to a college. So that's probably just going to offset some loans or take a little bit off of your out of pocket. Private, August to May of senior year, all the way through. Again, deadlines are passing every day. There's just so many and it's so abundant. But senior year, a lot of private scholarships are geared towards seniors. Now, not all of them. There are ones out there for underclassmen. There are for those in college, but a lot of them focus on those who are currently in their senior year. So if you see a theme here, there's a lot of overlap. So you're through August, October, November of your senior year, you're getting your college applications done. This is happening almost concurrently with the financial aid process. It used to be you apply, you figure out where you're going to go, and then you figure out how to pay for it. That is not how it works anymore. You have to figure these things out concurrently. How many? How many of these scholarships should I be applying for? Well, institutional, everything. All that you're eligible for, apply for it, because only students who are applying to and accepted at that college are eligible. So anything you can, that is so much more money. Just if it's available, do it. That is your first priority. Local, anything you're eligible for. Students succumb to this horrible disease around February of their senior year, where writing an essay is just unthinkable. And so what happens is the same kid at those senior awards night gets up over and over and over again because they're the only ones who applied. So anything you're eligible for, go for it. With private scholarships, as many as you like or can find. This is really the variable piece. Some families like to do this and like to focus on it. And if you do, I'll give you some tips on how to make it more manageable. But this is more of a wild card. This is not the strategy to pay for college. I would not advise like, oh, I will apply to whatever colleges and just look for private money to make it work. That's a very rare scenario. It does help and you can do it, but treat it like a part-time job if that's more of your strategy. Okay, who typically wins each type of scholarship? So you found out more about them, but like maybe which one's a better fit for you. So institutional scholarships, local scholarships, and private online. So institutional, typically it's the top 15 to 5% of accepted students. Again, that varies by institution. This can have a separate application or invitation. We'll talk about that in a second. Talent or quality scholarship. My sister majored in graphic design, but she got a vocal scholarship for a few $1,000s a year. So sometimes you don't even have to major in the thing that you're interested in if you have that talent. Bear in mind, some of those are only for 1 year, particularly the athletic ones. So you got to pay attention to make sure what the terms are. And then applying to colleges with generous merit aid. So some schools just award it to you automatically, and I'll show you what that looks like. Local scholarships, if you're involved in your local community and you can speak to how you're involved, if you have good academics, typically some scholarships have a minimum requirement of a 3.0, sometimes that's a 3.5. Financial need, Not all local scholarships have a need component, but I find that a lot of them do ask, why do you need the scholarship? Or they're trying to target students who have the greatest financial need. Not all of them do, but just pay attention to eligibility requirements and what they're looking for. And then willing to write those essays or complete the applications. That is so important. So just a willingness to do it at that point. Private online ones, you need a lot of time. It's ideal if you have a team, and I will talk more about that. Like you have more than just student, go find and apply for scholarships. That almost never works. It's a team effort between parent and student. Persistence, it's not I looked one Saturday, I found 3 scholarships the end. It's I've looked every 2 weeks for 4 months kind of thing. And then writing ability. A lot of essays have or a lot of scholarships have a writing component. So if you're if you're a very fluid writer, or you're just good at recycling stuff you've already gotten, that's great. Okay, let's talk briefly about the 3 ways colleges award scholarship dollars, because I find that there's a lot of confusion, particularly in this. A lot of people think of it as like a black box of like, colleges award money, how can I possibly know what to expect? So this is just a quick breakdown of like the 3 typical ways they do it. So one is automatically. Some have this lovely kind of chart where you just say, here's my GPA, here's my test score, boom, this is how much money I'm getting. And that's great. I'm finding there are fewer and fewer of those. But they do exist. Sometimes they look a little more like this with like ranges. But a lot of times these are out-of-state public institutions doing this kind of thing. And then some will do a net price calculator. All colleges have that, but some of them bake their scholarship information and estimate into that. You put in your GPA, you put in your test score, and they just tell you. Some will just tell you, you apply for merit scholarships as soon as you apply to Queens. We consider all applicants automatically. So your college application is your scholarship application. So that's where those supplemental extra essays outside the main essay, that can make a big difference. Those are essays that are demonstrating the institution's specific qualities or how interested you are in them. Some colleges will invite you. They will look at their applicant pool. They'll say, we really like this kid, this kid, this kid, this kid. Or they might have some sort of nomination process through the high school. That could also be a way where they identify a certain pool of very competitive students, and then they invite them to apply. That's why students should check their emails. One trick I encourage students to consider is they're likely bombarded by colleges already in their email. If they set up a new email account, something like Amanda Goes to College 2025 at gmail.com, and just give that only to the schools they're actually applying to, that's an easy way to make sure you don't miss one of these invitations, because that's a heartbreaking thing when I talk to a student and they open the email 3 days after the deadline. So if you are that competitive student and your college has this kind of program, pay attention. That's how they will invite you. And typically once they've invited you, you'll come in like January, February and do like a scholars interview type weekend. Separate application. Some colleges require you submit a scholarship application before you know if you've even been accepted. Some wait until after you're accepted, and then you go into their portal and then you fill out the scholarships then. So it's one of these 3 ways. It's either automatic, by invitation, or just a separate application that you need to find and know about. A lot of schools will do a mix. They're not going to just do it one way. They might have 2 different ways they do it. Like they might have one invitation, one separate application, or they might do automatically and invitation. It can mix. So just those are the 3 things to look out for. Okay, last thing on this topic. Let's get specific. So there's always more you could be done, as you're probably feeling at this moment. There's a lot, and it can be overwhelming. You're saying to yourself, we're applying to 12 colleges. I need to figure out how all 12 colleges do financial aid. And I need to talk to the local counselor, figure out what local scholarships, there's always more. So we need to define a scope of what qualifies as success here. The more defined that is, the more likely you are to carry out that plan. So I will apply for all the scholarships I can. That's something that I often hear students and parents say. Okay, that's commendable. When will you do this? Like, when is that going to happen? And then I will apply for 10 scholarships during my senior year. That's more specific, but like, cool, which kinds and by when? So let's set some more parameters. So what I'd like to see is something like this. The summer before my senior year, I'll research the scholarships offered by the institutions I'm applying to. That should be gold standard. Beginning in September, I will check in with my school counselor, school counseling website monthly for any local scholarships. And by December 15th of my senior year, I will have applied to all institutional scholarships I'm able, as well as outside scholarships, totaling $25,000. Like that's like, let's make a plan. If we're going to do this, because senior year is a one-time around for most people, like this is the time to make that plan. Okay. Pro tip, finding time can be hard, especially senior year. You have senior sunrises and graduation things and ring ceremonies. You have so many things going on. You have on top of your classes, on top of applying. So finding time, I understand, is very hard for all of these things. So two choices here. One, set aside time. Example, Saturday morning, I'm going to my favorite coffee shop and I'm going to set a timer for 20 to 45 minutes and I'm going to sprint search. The nice thing is about this one, because I know senior year, a lot of people want to be around their friends. This can be done with friends. Now, I know we have a lot of junior parents on with us tonight. So here's what I would say is with junior parents or juniors, they can start doing this too. You don't have to wait till senior year to do this. They're not going to find a lot that they can apply to in this moment, but what they can do is they can start naming them, putting the links to the ones that they do find, if they have time. Now, this is not at the sacrifice of their extracurriculars, their grades, other things, but this is something that if they're anxious about or trying to figure out how to pay for college, something they can do. You could do it with fellow moms or dads if you wanted to too. The other thing is create a routine. So some students like an app called Scully. It's a cute little dog with a graduation cap. Or Going Merry. You pick. People often ask me, what is the best resource for finding scholarships? And there isn't one. When I first started, I was so frustrated that there wasn't some universal spreadsheet with all the scholarships that I could just search. In this day and age of technology, why don't we have this? And I quickly figured out the answer. It's because scholarships are relatively ephemeral. Sometimes they're here and then the institution that's funding them goes away and then the scholarship is defunct. So you're left with a website with no clickable link, and the last scholarship was awarded 5 years ago. And so trying to keep up with all these people trying to create new scholarships, I don't know how we do it. So that's why there are a number of websites that try, and if you find a website you like, fantastic. And then attach this to a habit. So taking a walk, waiting for the bus. Anytime you be on your phone doing anything else, open the Scully app, open your favorite web page and search. And when you find one, take a screenshot. Like if you're doing it on your phone or otherwise, like just try to make it something that you're doing continually. All right. Which type of scholarship are you going to focus on first? I don't have an answer to this. This is genuinely a question. So if you're taking notes, which you're probably thinking, this lady talks very quickly, I need to take all the notes. That's why we have a recording. That's why I always provide the slides. Don't worry. Which type of scholarship are you going to focus on first? So take a moment, write your goal, write down which scholarship type you're thinking, what order you're going to attack them in. I'll give you guys a solid 10 seconds. Okay. We're going to do a choose your own frequently asked question topic. So we're going to have another poll real quick. So I don't have time to cover all of these things, but I figured let's take a poll and see which ones stand out. Which of these topics are you most interested in me talking about for 30 seconds? All right, I think most people have voted. Let's see the results. What shall we talk about? Trying to keep this interactive. All right, Miss Rebecca, what do we got? The first one, scholarship stacking. Ooh, you guys are savvy. You guys have heard of this. Okay, so let's talk about, and then 5 is a close runner. We might talk about that for a second. But I will go ahead and say for 5 underclassmen scholarships, the key thing is to prepare to be the best possible applicant you can. That's the goal. Whether that's increasing your GPA, cultivating lots of hobbies, whatever it is, prepare to be an excellent applicant that you can, and have life experiences. A lot of times they ask about how have you impacted your community? What was a challenging thing? They're common to what's on the college application. So having those lived experiences helps. Scholarship stacking, let's talk there. Okay, so true story. When I was in high school, I got a scholarship and I took it to my college. I said, college, I have this $15,000 local scholarship. I would like to add that to my financial aid package. And they said, that's lovely. and they decreased how much they gave me and they put that in its spot. That's called displacement. It didn't help me at all. Now, to be clear, I had already gotten enough in grants, like I didn't have loans or anything to displace, so it was fine. It just was a wash. So it didn't matter that I got the outside scholarship. A lot of times, if you are bringing outside money to a college to add to your award letter, it will displace usually your loans first or out of pocket. Now, not always. They could just decrease the aid they've given you. So that's a question to ask a college financial aid office. The admissions office may know, sometimes they do, but a lot of times they'll refer you to the scholarship office or the financial aid office. And the question you asked is, are outside scholarships stacked, or do they displace funding that I already have? And if they displace, what do they displace for us? What's the order of operations? Is it loans, then out of pocket, then other? Is it out of pocket, then loans, then stuff? You give me finding out more about that. Okay. Part 2, finding scholarships to win. Oh, good. We're right on time. Finding scholarships. Okay, where are all the scholarships I'm eligible for, Amanda? Where are they? So institutional is on the college's financial aid website. Now, it can be a bit of an Easter egg hunt, and I can give you some tips here. One is if you open a college's scholarship website, their financial aid website, and the very first thing they talk about is FAFSA or outside scholarships, like go to Going Merry, go to scholarships.com, go to FastWeb. That's not typically a good sign, because that means like they don't have a lot to blow their horn about. Like if they have scholarships, they're going to put those front and center because they want you to know about it. There are some keywords you can Google, because I find that like going to the college's website and navigating through it is sometimes harder than just Googling. So what I would Google is name of the college, followed by freshman merit scholarship. If it's an out-of-state college, non-resident. So if it's a college that's outside of your state and public, non-resident scholarship is probably what you want to type. If it's in your state, resident scholarship, that works. But freshman scholarship, merit aid, those are all ways to get to that scholarship portal pretty quickly. Sometimes they're going to refer you to other parts of the website. They might refer you to like, oh, we have this business scholars thing, and they might refer you to the business website. Or an honors college might have money attached to it. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It might refer you to the honors college website, but that's going to be your one-stop shop, is the college's financial aid office. Now, if you get on their website and something's not clear, call the financial aid office. In fact, your student should call the financial aid office. They want to hear from your student to ask the question of, I read this on the website, could you please clarify? Or I see that you have merit awards or endowed scholarships. What does that mean? Like how many students are actually getting those? And if you all remind me at the end, I have a resource to help you know how generous schools typically are. It won't tell you about the specific scholarships, but it'll let you know how much folks are getting, particularly folks who don't have any financial need. Okay, it's a great reason to stick around. All right, local scholarships. These are on your counselor's office, at your counselor's office. They used to have them on bulletin boards or in a little paper organizer. Most of the time they're on the website. This could be SCORE, this could be Naviance, but they're on your high school's website. Now, I often get the question, you know, I'm at a homeschool or I'm at a very small school. We don't have a lot on here. What can I do? Look at the other local high schools. A lot of times, other local high schools will post scholarships that someone just didn't reach out to your high school about, but they'll be on other local high schools' websites. So you can check other high schools' websites. And then every state has a higher education website. In North Carolina, we have CFNC. A variety of others have, like, if you just type the name of your state and higher education and something about scholarship, you'll probably get there. There is, if I remember at the end, there is a website where you can just click on your state and it'll take you straight there. But your state's higher ed website, that's another place you can find regional scholarships. They may not be micro, like local to where you live, like your town, but it might be like the western part of your state or a few specific counties. As well as any state aid programs that exist, whether that's scholarship or need-based. And then private, okay. One place you can look that a lot of people don't consider is first start with any organization or company you're affiliated with. Do you work for Chick-fil-A? Do you work for Starbucks? Are you a member of the Elks organization or Rotary? Like start with places you're affiliated with, because that's kind of a form of local scholarship because you have a connection. Otherwise, they're hiding online. But I do have some tips for you here to make this more manageable. So take a moment to jot down where you're going to look, and then I'm going to give you some tips on how to make this more manageable. Oh, I have some FAQs. I forgot. I have so much good stuff in this presentation. Okay, so quick question. How do people get full rides? I love this question because people talk about full rides either like they're mythical unicorns or like everybody gets them. There seems to be like no middle ground. So let's talk about who actually gets full rides. One, students who are high need, so students with low family incomes, typically at highly rejective schools. So a school with less than a 20% admission rate. These are full rides, but they're usually actually grants rather than scholarships. That was the case for me. So I didn't, aside from that one scholarship I told you about, I didn't really get any other scholarships, but college was paid for because I was high need. So Pell eligible students, that sort of thing. National Merit Scholars. There are a couple dozen institutions that if you're, since I have junior parents on this call, I will highlight this. If your student is going to score really, really well or scored really, really well on the PSAT, there are a couple dozen institutions that will give a full ride or full tuition. There's even more that do full tuition to a National Merit Scholar. Now, you have to be in the 99th percentile. That's something to be aware of. Exceptional talent. Like not all Division I athletes get a scholarship. And anything below Division I, Division II, you're not getting a scholarship. So if you have exceptional talent, possibly, but that's rare. You could be a big fish in a small pond. The example I have here is I have a student who got into Chapel Hill and he got into Charlotte. So I'm here in North Carolina. So UNC Charlotte is local down the road, kind of big state university. And then Chapel Hill is our flagship institution. He got into Chapel Hill and would be pre-business. And at Charlotte, he got something called the Levine Scholars Program. So he got a full ride, stipends for the summer, all the things. And he interviewed really, really well. So the question was, which one do you go? Like if you're that kid who can get into a really competitive school, you might get a full ride at a less competitive institution. A lot of times those big competitive scholarships have an interviewing component, which brings us to compete for and win a highly competitive scholarship. So there's the stamp scholarship at a number of institutions. There just lots of institutions have like a top tier type of scholarship. At my alma mater, Davidson, it was the Belk Scholarship. At University of Virginia, it's the Jefferson. So lots of schools will have a top scholarship. So you can win that highly competitive one. So those are when we talk about full rides, I guess the one I didn't put on here was service academies. If you're going to, West Point or something, like those are full rides. Because they don't charge tuition. All right, pro tips. Here we go. Pro tips for finding private scholarships. Hopefully you've written down where you're going to look. But if you are going to find private scholarships, pro tip number one is create a nouns list of what's every noun that applies to me. I am female. I am North Carolinian. I am right now a mother. I did Model UN, like just every single noun that applies to me. And then search by those nouns rather than just opening and browsing, just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling, saying, today I'm going to look for scholarships for engineering students. Today I'm going to look for women's scholarships. Today I'm going to look for, and that makes it even more divide and conquer, more manageable. Assembly line. This is where I said we need to have a team. I found that the folks who really succeed with private scholarships are the ones who parent goes finds scholarship, passes it to student, student completes scholarship, and they just roll all senior year. Usually something that works really well for these families is a shared Google Sheet. So that way they can bank scholarships asynchronously. You can look for them as the parent, put them in. Please, please, please put the link or you'll never find it again. That's what I found. So name of scholarship, deadline, amount, link. Do that and it's a shared Google Doc. That way you're not pestering them every time of like, here, I have supported you. I have given you these links and these places so that you can go and do it. Quick thing, make sure you check the eligibility. That's the number one thing. Make sure that they are eligible before you put it on. And then apply as you go. Some people have the strategy of, I'm going to find all the scholarships and then I'm going to start applying for them. Once you find 2 or 3 scholarships you're eligible for, that the application's open, just go ahead and start knocking them out. So a couple stellar FAQs before we head into our last bit. So these are asked almost every session, but I don't really have a place to put them, so I just kind of start here. How do private and private colleges and public universities differ in scholarship availability? Private colleges way more scholarships, whether that's discounting, again, that bringing it down a whole bunch, the sticker price is here, the net price is here. That's possible. Public universities, the the advantage is that the tuition is not so high to begin with. So unless your state has a scholarship program where all the kids in your state with a certain GPA and test score get X dollars to stay in state, I find it's pretty slim pickings at a lot of public universities. There's just not, it's not to say there aren't any, but like there are fewer dollar amounts and awards for public universities than there are at private colleges. Um, how do I find my odds of winning a scholarship? Some websites, I'm thinking FastWeb Going Merry will tell you how many applications were submitted and how many winners there are, so you can get a quick, what are my odds? But most of the time, if you want to know, you're going to have to talk to a person, whether that's a local scholarship, you talk to your counselor. If any of my students had come to me, I would have told them, hey, that BB&T $5,000 scholarship we had last year, we had 3 students apply. You know, please apply. You only had to have a 3.0 and do activities. It would be great. Whereas other ones, like if it's an enter to win $10,000, put your email, that's not great. So I would say your odds are directly correlated with how personalized the scholarship is. So if you're eligible for a North Carolina Women in STEM, if that's you, great, apply for that scholarship. It's better tailored to you than just how many people are eligible. And that brings me to, how do I whittle down, organize, or prioritize scholarships I find? Whittle down, first and foremost, I can't emphasize this enough because I call it the halfway through howl, where students are applying for a scholarship and then go back and read something and then quickly realize, oh, wait, this is only for first generation Americans. I'm not a first generation American. Well, that's half the scholarship application I didn't have to do. So whittle down by eligibility first. Only when you're sure that you're eligible and that the application is open do you put it on your spreadsheet. 2, how do you organize it? I would say organize by deadline first, then organize by how personalized it is to you, and then prioritize, this prioritizing as well as organizing, like how much it is third. A lot of people say, oh, I'm going to apply for this $100,000 scholarship. That's fine. You can do that. But I would rather you apply for 4 or 5 $5,000 scholarships at which you had a much better chance. So deadline, likely like fit, and then dollar amount would be how I prioritize. All right, part 3, this is going to go super fast. All right, applying like a winner. So applying FAQs. What should I have on hand to make applying to scholarships easier and less time consuming? I would advise that you have a document with all the essays that you will write for college just there. And I have the Control+F function because when you're like, oh, I knew I wrote an essay about scholars or about leadership, Control+F leadership, and then you can just go down and find the one that you used and recycle. A resume. Now these they can be any format you like. I would just say like give them a few lookovers. A lot of times local scholarships in particular will ask you for a list of your activities. And if you have a resume already, you can do one of 2 things. If they have a format they want you to put them in, you can transfer over really easily. You don't have to think about it every time. But you can also just a lot of times say, see attached resume, staple, and it looks nice and it's already done. So it just helps you remember the things you've done and it's just good to have on hand. A copy of your transcript. Now, if a scholarship asks for an official copy, your high school has to send that. But if it can be an unofficial copy, just having a copy of your transcript that you can attach is helpful. Spare letters of recommendation. Your teachers do not need to write new letters of recommendation for scholarships. You can just ask them to shift a couple things on their recommendation and then just send it. Teachers do not mind doing that at all. It's writing the initial recommendation is like asking them to write an essay, but once they've got it, tweaking it, they don't mind doing that at all. And then Google spreadsheet. Cannot emphasize this enough. You have to stay organized, and if you don't put the link down, you will not find it again. Okay, applying. What do folks who win scholarships do differently? They focus on best fit over award amounts. They enlist help. They reach out. Parents, teachers, mentors, anybody. In fact, one of my favorite things to teach students to do when I work with them is to do verbal jujitsu their senior year. And that is the nosy neighbor will come up and say, oh, you're a senior, you're applying to college, where are you going? Well, I'm not sure yet because I have until May 1st to decide and compare award letters, and I'm not going to lock into any school till I know what I'm paying at all of them. But I could really use help with is finding scholarships. Let me know if you know of any. You'll be amazed at how many things come out of the woodwork. Yes, indeed. I did put that on here. All right. Local Rotary clubs, if you call up, especially since I have a lot of junior parents here, senior parents, you're still important, don't worry. But if you call up local Rotary organizations or Lions Club or Key Club, as a junior, if they hear from the student and the student's asking, hey, do you have any scholarships that you all award? A lot of times what will happen, I've seen students do this quite a few times actually, where they'll call up and the person will say, oh, we used to, but then COVID happened. And like the person who did it kind of dropped off and like, oh, I guess we should start that back up again. So they start back up the scholarship, they offer it, and then the student applies for it. And then the Rotarian goes, huh, this was the student who reached out to me. That's so cool. And gives them a boost. So just like reaching out to local organizations, not a bad idea. And then persist and stay organized. Just stay organized throughout and then submit early. I cannot emphasize this enough. There is no such thing as late in scholarships. There just isn't. If you miss the deadline, you've missed it. So I strongly encourage students to turn in scholarship applications early, particularly local ones. That looks really good because it's closer to the person, it's less faceless. We do see it that you had your act together sooner. I've been on a few different boards for local scholarship or groups with local scholarships, and that we do notice that. Okay. Give their best effort. I say this and here's what I mean. Read carefully. If they say that they want the application done in blue pen, do it in blue pen. Make it neat. I have had a local scholarship turned in crayon before. Do not do that. So again, this is applying more to like local person to person ones, but it's important. Give specific and enthusiastic answers all the way through. So a lot of times students are intimidated by questions like, what do you intend to do once you've graduated college? And they think they have to have their whole life figured out. They don't. What they need to do is just explain what they're so excited about. I'm so excited to do this thing. No one's going to come after them with pitchforks if they don't follow through. I'm not saying not be honest. I'm saying be honest, but also, go out there, have a little bit of a bold answer. Like if anyone's ever taken an acting class where you make a choice, like don't just be bland, like make a choice and commit, do that. Just be enthusiastic. Recycled, I've mentioned that, and then actually apply. Students look back. One of the most heartbreaking conversations I have is when it is May 15th and a student has committed to a college and then they want to talk about scholarships. The scholarships happened 6 months before. So making sure that you're taking advantage of the opportunities as they present themselves in the senior timeline. Okay, what if I do all the things and I still don't get a scholarship? Am I just doomed to take out loans? No. Scholarships are just one piece. Choosing and applying to colleges that are financial fits is a big deal. Applying for need-based aid is a big deal. Work, study, summer jobs, and loans. These are all pieces that fall together. In fact, one of the things on my Paying for College in 4 Steps, it's free, it's on the College Essay website, is this award letter analyzer. Any student I work with, when we're at the end of the process, we sit down together and we look at each of their award letters. Every college they've been accepted to gives them an award letter, and we walk bit by bit through each one. And the first thing we do is tuition and fees. This is how we chip away at the cost. Did they have financial safety schools that they could afford? Having low tuition fees is a good place to start. Then we chip away with easy money. Fill out the FAFSA. These things are automatic or guaranteed if you qualify. Then we look at our institutional grants and scholarships. Then we look at loans and we have a work study job. I would say job over loans, but so these are all bits and pieces that come together. Most students and families are pulling all these pieces together to make college affordable. Okay, with that, yes, on time. Q&A. So I would like to open it up to anyone who has questions to please ask them. And I'm so excited. Thank you for letting me share with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was a sprint, wasn't it?
I know, that was amazing.
Thanks.
Now I think 3rd time watching you do your thing, and I always learn something new. So thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, folks, feel free. We have about 12 minutes left on the clock. So if you have any questions that came up after Amanda's presentation, please feel free to add them in there. There was one that I thought your take might be helpful on, Amanda, is there were a couple of questions about national merit. And someone wisely pointed out that national merit, this often surprises maybe some people. So just to reiterate, National Merit Scholarship is awarded to students who achieve a certain high result on the PSAT usually, and then they go through rounds of eligibility and become finalists. And
Yes, yes,
there's
yes.
very few schools that I know of that offer pretty large awards related to that scholarship. Most are kind of
Mhm.
smaller, $1,000, maybe a few more dollars depending on
Right.
college. So just wanted to see if there were any beyond. I know USC off the top of my head is a school that I believe gives.
Alabama,
Okay, Alabama.
New College of Florida. I'm doing off the top of my head. Louisiana Tech, University of Mississippi, um, Oklahoma Christian, Florida FNA&M. I think I've got a site here. Give me one second.
Sure. Yeah. I went ahead and pasted it. You can actually, if you see in the Q&A box, there's an answered question that has to do
Mhm.
with. So if you want to head there and
Oh, the
kind of,
Q&A box. Yeah,
yeah,
I can do
feel
that.
free to put a link if you know of one that has kind of like a master sheet of different
Yeah, yeah. One second.
colleges that
I always have these things open. So
you.
yeah.
I put one that I found from College Vine. So shout out to College Vine for putting that together. Uh,
Yes, yes. That's an easy one. Yeah, that's what I would say.
But for the
So
rest of you
it's
tuning in who are like, hey, I thought it would be a full ride, just prepare yourself. High PSAT results are great. Congratulations.
But
And
it's
it's,
such a narrow
yeah,
scope of schools. We're talking like a couple dozen.
yeah,
And the
for
question
sure.
then becomes if it's a right fit for your student or not.
Yeah.
And it's not just I thank you for clarifying. It's not just get a high test score. There are rounds.
Hmm. So two other questions just came in as well. One
Mhm.
from Tom. So thank you, Tom. And it's, does having a 529 savings plan affect your chances of institutional scholarships? Great question.
That is such a great question. So what I would say is um, a college is not going to consider your 529 savings unless you're applying for need-based aid. Institutional scholarships are scholarships. They are merit-based rather than need-based. So what could happen is just to play the scenario out, let's say you have a significant amount of money in savings. Well, first of all, colleges only assess parent savings, which 529s count as parent assets, not student assets, because students are the beneficiary. And you could get mad at them and change the beneficiary if you wanted. But if it's your 529 account, colleges are only assessing that at 5%. So for every $100,000 you have in that account, a college financial aid office is adding 5,000 to what they expect you to pay for college. So you're not really penalized for saving. Um, that's a common misconception. But what I would say is what might happen is if you had that savings, if you maybe you didn't have that savings, you might have been eligible for some institutional need-based aid, but then you had that extra savings and you weren't eligible for need-based aid. Then the question would be, would they, instead of giving you that grant, give you a scholarship instead? It depends on the institutional priorities. Like some colleges really only focus on need, some only focus on merit. For those in the middle that are doing a little bit of both, then what I would say is it's not a direct thing. It would be, oh, you didn't qualify for this bucket. Now we're going to turn to this bucket if we have it. Does that make sense? So 529 impacts your ability to get grant-based aid, and sometimes, like if they've given you enough, they may not turn to the merit bucket. They might think, oh, your need's been met at this point. We're going to use that merit money on someone else. It's the only scenario I can think of. Most of the time, they're completely separate, but that's the only time I can think of. Hopefully that was clear. Oh, there you go.
You did.
Muted.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yes, very clear. And then two other lingering questions. Are there any fee waivers for the CSS profile to help
Yes.
apply to college? Yes, this is one that actually we've gotten a couple times at College
Mhm.
Jessica, because I think the fee waiver process is a lot easier for certain, the Common App, for example.
Mhm.
I think there's a little bit more ambiguity around
So,
CSS.
so the answer is yes. For those with financial need, there is a CSS profile fee waiver. Otherwise, it's $25 for the first student and or for the first college and then 16 thereafter. So yes, if that's the case, there can be a fee waiver. Mhm.
Awesome. Is there any particular thorniness around being eligible for that, or say contacting College Board?
I would say typically if you're Pell eligible, then you're probably going to qualify. So if you completed the FAFSA and it said you were eligible for a Pell Grant, meaning your student aid index is below a certain, like the number that you get at the end that FAFSA spits out,
Okay.
If that number is below, let's say, 8,000 or something, then yeah, you'll likely qualify for a CS profile waiver.
Okay. Any separate guidance for international students? To that?
Yes. Oh,
We do get a
okay.
decent
So
amount. Yeah.
no. So international students. Okay. So one thing that they have to be very careful of is when they read on a college's financial aid website about availability of aid, particularly if they're saying they meet 100% of need, that's a big one. So kind of separate from scholarships. Finding out if that applies to only domestic students. So there's some colleges, quite a few of them, where they
Right.
have all the money in the world to meet need until you're an international student. That's not always. I would say like one college that's very friendly that comes to mind typically is like Kenya. Kenyon tends to be pretty friendly. Like there's a number of colleges that are friendly and don't distinguish between international and domestic students
I think
through their aid
Bowdoin
process.
too.
What's that?
I think
Bowdoin,
Bowdoin as
yes.
well.
Yeah. So that's something, and that's where you call up the financial aid office and you say, is there any distinction between domestic and international and like how they're treating the aid process? In terms of specific scholarships of like you're an international student, we have this aside. Sometimes there's an endowed scholarship or two through a college. Like if say an alumni who went through who was an international student sets up something like that could happen, but that's not the norm. That would be an exception, is what I would say.
Awesome. Thank you.
No worries.
And then the last one is, can you apply for scholarships at the end of junior year?
There are some, those open-ended ones that are private. Yes, a few colleges, for some reason, Juanita's come into mind. Like there's a few colleges out there where SCAD maybe is another one. They have like a junior scholars program where they have scholarships that juniors can apply for and be eligible for. So there are a minority, very small minority of colleges that do it for juniors. Typically their admission rates are going to be like admitting about half or more, like that kind of institution in terms of selectivity is they're admitting more than half the people who apply. Otherwise, ROTC starts pretty early. I won't say it's at the end of junior year, but you start preparing for that process for ROTC scholarships about then. Those are the ones the main ones that come to mind. Otherwise, it's just the main focus in junior year and making college affordable is finding colleges that are financial fits, finding schools that are financially friendly to you. That's the biggest thing you can do rather than look for a specific scholarship is find those colleges.
Yeah. And I think for those of you who are juniors on the call, it's great that you're thinking about this earlier than later, but I
Mhm.
totally want to reiterate that adding schools to your college list that have more likelihood, especially if you know from doing things like a FAFSA or like a net price calculator early on, and you have a better clarity or assessment of whether or not you're eligible for need-based aid or not, prioritizing the schools with those maybe generate merit awards. If you are someone who has not as high need-based aid, but still are looking for ways to defray the.
Oh, that reminds me, I promised y'all a resource. One second, I'll pull it up. So, for those who don't have need necessarily, let me pull it up. Who are thinking like, I want to find colleges that are generous to folks who aren't going to qualify for aid through the FAFSA. I have this for you. And this website also has an international version as well. So for my international folks on the call, let's see, can I?
Awesome. We just got a question about that. And
Oh,
I'm going
fantastic. I'm not sure how to put it in the chat, but I can, or yeah, maybe I can put it in the chat. Here we go. Chat. Here it is. Boop. So Ginny and Jeff are phenomenal resources in
yes.
the community. I love them. They put together charts. It's wonderful. But this resource, do you mind if I share my screen real quick? Or maybe do you want to
Absolutely.
share your screen? Can you do that?
I can, yeah. I'm just
Yeah.
Yasser had a question in the chat about any websites where international students can look at all the steps and what to do after applying, advice, tips, and I'm like, yes, College Essay Guys, International Student Hub is a
Yeah, Exilia, right?
Yep, we have Auxilia on there, which is a great tool for international students that helps get a sense of how many international students are receiving aid at different colleges, what that percentile looks like, what percent met the school is. So it's a great tool that I think can be really helpful to you. And then also the hub in general has lots of articles about applying to college in the US beyond the scholarship and financial side. It's about the admission process in general, which we know from whatever country you're coming from is probably really different than what the world that you're swimming in. So hope that can be a helpful resource to you. But yeah, let me go ahead and share the J and J. I love you.
Yes.
I am a fellow fan. Oh, okay, let's see.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, so if you can scroll down, so a couple things it has on here. It has one spreadsheet that shows the difference in acceptance rates between early decision and regular decision. That's really cool. And then it has some sample early action rates as well. And if you scroll down to the domestic undergraduate, that's the one I wanted to share. So domestic undergraduate need-based and merit-based. So that interactive chart right there. Yep. If you
Awesome.
click on it, I can show them
Yep.
like a couple quick things it does. So the key thing that's the most important is, or the most helpful that I can't really find too many other places is, I know it's an interactive chart, so it takes a second to load, is there's a column towards the right side that says non-need aid. And what it does is it shows you what percentage of students at that institution do not have need and are receiving merit money. So, and it tells you their average award. So for example, I know I miss when it was the Excel spreadsheet. Um, so for example, it might show you, the average award is $60,000, but only 5% of students are getting it. Or there it goes. Or it might show you, oh, it popped up. If you click back
Oh no,
over.
no, I just switched the tab over. There was someone who was asking for
Oh, there
the
it is.
link again.
So if you scroll down to see how it says average percent need met, so that's how much need they're meeting for those who
Yep.
have need. Mhm. And then it shows in that second to last column, average merit award to non-need. So Agnes Scott is giving away $32,000 on average.
Yep.
And if you look, their cost of attendance is 64. So that's half off. And then 99% of students, non-need students, are receiving aid. So that's pretty significant.
Yeah. And you can even click on the column as well to filter by,
Yeah, I'm not sure
highest.
what's going on with those percents, but
Yeah, right. 300%. That's amazing. It seems like there might be a user error there, but
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of colleges that will meet that
Uh,
100% of need for those who have it. It's wonderful.
yeah, and you can search individual schools here on the left side too if there's a particular school you had in mind.
And it's
Um,
not every college that will be on here, but it's a lot of what I call
ah,
it is cross state lines colleges. Like it's colleges that if they're not in your state, you would go to another state for them.
right. Yeah, absolutely. And there's also, I think,
There's an international one, yeah.
yeah, right here, financial aid for undergraduate international non-citizens. So for
Mhm.
any of those of you who are tuning in who are international students, this will be the chart that you'll want to reference because the information in the data is just so much more specific to your process and your eligibility. So that'll be all on that main Big J Education Consulting link that Amanda shared out in the chat.
Such a great resource.
I was like the night is here in
Mhm.
California. I was thinking about turning the light on, but I'm like, I'm actually kind of still glowing from the computer screen. So any final words of wisdom or advice? We're 2 minutes over, but anything?
I would say, when in doubt, reach out to College Essay Guy. There's a resource for just about everything. Is delightful. And if you wish you had my brain in searchable format, that's where the Paying for College in 4 Steps on the College Essay Guy
Amazing.
website is there, and it goes into so much more detail about scholarships. It has links to those specific scholarships. It has a wide variety of full need and or full tuition scholarships. There's a whole lot of information on there that you can find.
I'm actually going to put that in the chat right now. And for
Yes.
those of you who are like, I need to click on the links right away, don't worry. You'll receive an email with the recording for this session, as well as any of the links that we shared in the Q&A or the chat. So you'll be hooked up for all your future perusing of cash. All right, that's why I wore this green shirt here. So there was thought, there was intention. Thank you so much, Amanda, for being here with us. And best of luck to all of you with your college and financial aid and scholarship journeys. We can't wait to see you on the next webinar. And yeah, thanks again.
Thank you.